But for the for the next session, we must all join so that if you have questions, you can ask your questions, etc., etc. Otherwise, it seems a lot of people just they don't want to show up for class. They don't want to show up for class because they know that the lesson will be posted later. Okay, so let's continue. Last time I think we did cover scoring in rugby. If you go into your Moodle, hopefully you guys already went on there. You'll see I've posted a slide and then also a periodization for rugby. So in that periodization, you can also see like there's a lot of additional information surrounding the game of rugby. So when you go look at that, I will present it in one of the classes. But that is pretty much what you need to know about this specific sport, right? When we do physical education, it's not, even though we are specializing now in rugby, volleyball, whatnot, we need to basically break this whole thing down into the science of sport. So at the end of these type of courses, you must be able to look at any other type of sport and be able to analyze a sport and see exactly what is involved in that sport. What does an athlete require to achieve peak performance? Okay, that is the way that we want to teach our physical education students and sports science students to be able to look at any type of sport. So if someone comes to you on advice about boat sailing or whatever, then you'll have that tools to look at the sport and tell them, okay, according to my analysis, this is the type of movements and energy systems involved, muscles involved, where do you need to strengthen, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so please look at even something like the rugby. When you go through the periodization, a lot of those things are sorry, a lot of those things are very similar to in the way that you look at other sports as well. So just go through that for me. The scoring in rugby, I think we've already touched on that. So there's 5 ways that you can score. It's a try conversion, field goal, penalty kick, and penalty try. So for each scoring type, you are awarded different points. It's important for you to know those 5, and then also um, describe each one and then give the point values for each. Okay, so that's easy marks, maybe 10 to even 15 marks if I'm very lazy and I want to ask that question. Okay, and then open play, I think that's we already also covered. It's just when the ball is alive, when it's being kicked past between players. So anytime the ball is being played on a rugby field is what we call open play. The kickoff is just the way that we start the match. And then also after each try that has been scored, that's also how you restart the match. And then passing, we already established that in rugby, even though we need to move forward as a team, the ball is not allowed to be passed forward. The ball must travel backwards at all times, otherwise you will be penalized and it will be awarded as a forward pass and the ball will be going to the other team. Okay, so it's in order to run with the ball and pass the ball backwards so that a next person can run into space and then pass the ball to the next person that can also run into space, and that's how you progress and go forward in a rugby match. Okay, apart from passing, the only thing that you're allowed to do where the ball actually travels forward is kicking. So you're allowed to kick the ball forward and then try and chase it down and catch it again. However, if you're not gonna go chase your own kick, the person that's going to go chase for that kick has to he has to start his run at the behind the kicker. So if I'm the kicker, my partner needs to be behind me when I kick the ball, and then he's allowed to run. If he's already in front of me and I kick the ball, and he has any interference with that play, then that is considered as an offside in rugby. That's the first form of offside in a rugby match. Okay, so for kicking, you've got different ways that you kick. You can either grab a ball. A grab a ball is when you kick the ball along the grass. So you don't kick it in the air, you kick it on the top edge of the oval shaped ball, whereby it rolls in and then it has a bounce in its roll. So then you kick it like that into space, and then it's easier to collect. And then you can kick it directly out of your hands into obviously any open space. And then the other type of kick that we have in rugby is the drop kick. Is the drop kick, which is oof, someone's mic. Is the drop kick, which is a kick taken anytime during the game. So it's that where we did the scoring, which was where, yeah. So a field goal is a drop kick during open play and it counts 3 points. The ball needs to make contact with the ground before you kick it for it to be valid. And then the final type of kick that you have is a place kick, is where you place the ball on a cone. And this is usually done when doing a conversion, which is part of scoring. And then also when you're awarded penalty kicks, you place the ball on a cone, or you call it a tee, and then you kick it from the tee, try and kick it through the goals. Okay, and then the knock on is when you mishandle the ball. So which means if someone is passing you the ball and you accidentally, it bounces off your hand, so you don't catch it properly and it goes forward, then it's considered as a knock on, and then the ball possession will be given to the other team in that situation. So knock on is usually followed with a scrum. So every time there's a knock on, the teams will form up and form a scrum, and the other team will gain possession of the ball, which means they will feed the ball into the scrum, which gives them the advantage. However, if the other team, if they have better players or bigger players, stronger players in their scrum, they can still easily win that ball again, win the ball back if they are stronger than the other team. Okay, so even looking at something like a scrum and your forward players in rugby, that from an outside or coaching perspective, it already shows you that this type of player I will train differently from my backline players, because these ones are pure strength. We need to focus only on power, explosiveness, and they've obviously the shape of their body, um, for them to actually bring weight into that scrum and have the advantage over there or any other opponent. Okay, so that's what a knock on is. You need to be able to catch the ball properly. That's not just when you are receiving a pass, but even if the ball is coming out of the air, maybe from a kick, the other team kick the ball towards you and you catch it and you miss it and it goes forward, it's considered to be a knock on. However, if you do the same thing where you knock it but the ball travels backwards, there's no bounce forward, but there's a bounce, but the bounce is backwards off your body or your hands, then that won't be considered as a knock on. So then you can try and get back and collect the ball again and then continue with play. Okay, but that is up to the referee to judge that. And then tackling is probably one of the important things in rugby, because that is the difference of outsiders, people that don't really like rugby or watch rugby. When they see rugby, they think it's just a violent sport. You'll just get hurt. Okay. But if you don't do the tackling aspect as a coach, if you don't do that aspect and teach amateurs or youngsters properly, that's how they end up getting hurt. Okay. Um, so only the ball carrier can be tackled by an opposing player. So it's not like American football where everyone can tackle everyone. Doesn't matter if you have the ball or not. Okay, only the ball carrier is allowed to be tackled. And then a tackle occurs when the ball carrier is held by one or more opponents and brought to the ground. The ball carrier must release the ball immediately after the tackle, and tackler must release the ball carrier, and both players must roll away from the ball. Okay, so if I'm running with the ball, someone tackles me, as soon as my knees touch the ground, then it's considered as a tackle. Then both of the players will fall onto the ground. As soon as your whole body is onto the ground, the ball carrier needs to release the ball. So usually what will happen in that case is a ball carrier will always try within the tackle to try and change his position so that his front side faces his team and then he'll release the ball or place it so that my team has a better chance of gaining the ball again after tackle. Okay, if you don't release the ball, it's considered to be holding and it's a violation of the rules, and then obviously you will lose possession of the ball and it will be given to the other team. And then on the tackler side, if you're tackling someone and you bring them to the ground, then you need to release that tackler. You're not allowed to hold on to him while you're on the ground. So the aim is to release, get up onto your feet, and then you can go down while you are on your feet, bend down and try and compete for the ball. Okay, so the tackler must tackle, quickly get up so that the referee can see he's standing up straight with his feet firmly on the ground. And then after you've established that position, while the other player is still lying on the ground, you can put your hands down and try and rip the ball out or push the ball. What players do is they push the ball against the player so that the player can't release the ball. So they are forcing you to actually uh, they're forcing you to be penalized for that violation. Okay, so it's something that is allowed in rugby. You are allowed to hold on to the ball and push it against the player so that they can't push it away, and the referee will see that as holding on to the ball and you'll be penalized. Okay, however, they're not allowed to do that if they are not on their feet. So if I try and hold the ball back against this other player, but my knees, I'm sitting on my knees, then I will be penalized. Okay, and in that case, the awarding team that's been awarded with the foul, that team can decide either to kick the ball out the ground to try and gain possession, gain territory, or they can decide if it's close enough to the goals to take a place kick, a penalty kick, and then they kick it from the incident, the position that where the incident occurred, and try and score 3 points. Okay, so after the ball has been released, the player has been released. This allows other players to come in and contest for the ball, thereby starting a new phase of play. So a phase is broken down when a ruck occurs. So after a tackle has been made, then you call that one phase. If the same team is still in position of the ball after a tackle has been made, then the second phase, as soon as the ball gets feed on or passed away, then a second phase starts. So when they talk about phases in rugby, it's just every time uh, a ball carrier has been tackled and brought down to ground, a ruck has formed. We'll get to the ruck, I think, in the next slide. Then a ruck forms, and then from from the moment play continues from the ruck, that's when your second phase of the next phase starts. Okay, and then all tackles must be below the shoulder to avoid being penalized. That's though with the old rules. With the new rules, it has to be below the nipple, the height of your nipples, right? So your chest. If you tackle higher than that, you'll be penalized. That'll be dangerous play, and you can either get a yellow card or a red card. Okay. Okay, and then the next part is when we talk in rugby, when we talk about rucks, mauls, and lineouts, we usually talk about set plays. Okay, so if you maybe get a question, easy question, where you need to discuss all set plays in rugby, then that would mean you will say set plays consists out of the ruck, the maul, the scrum, and the lineout. Okay, and those are 4 different things that you train during training times. Okay, so coaches focus on line out calls, how different line out moves. They focus on scrumming techniques. They focus on rucking, proper rucking, so that you don't get penalized. Proper mauling, best ways of mauling, how to walk, how to rotate, etc., etc. Okay, so in this part, rugby becomes very technical. Okay, so then it's not just a game where you need to take the ball and run as fast as you can and go try and score. Okay, you can actually win the game by focusing on different set plays. So a ruck is formed if the ball is on the ground and one or more player from each team who are on their feet close around it. So remember what we said about the tackler, right? The tackler is going to tackle the person that has the ball. If he tackles the person goes to the ground and the tackler goes to the ground. As soon as he gets up onto his feet and contests for the ball, right? The other team, a member of the other team, will also try and cover the person that just been tackled. So they're gonna try and cover that person and protect that person so that he can play the ball out, so that we can keep possession of the ball. Okay. The moment that happens, then a ruck has been formed. Okay, so the main thing is about a ruck, the ball must be on the ground, and then at least two players must be contesting for the ball, 2 to 3 players. Okay, then it's important for players not to handle the ball in the ruck. You must use your feet to move the ball or drive over it so that it emerges at the team's hindsome foot, at which point it can be picked up. Okay, so you're not just allowed to go into the mall and try and get the ball, or the ball needs to be played out. Okay. However, with new rules, like I just mentioned, in a ruck, you can force a player to cause a violation by holding the ball against his body, right? So that he can't release the ball and then he will be penalized for holding on to the ball. Okay, so that is a ruck. You will see on Moodle, I posted those videos. I think I posted quite a few videos. Go watch those videos. They show you exactly how a ruck works, the breakdown of a ruck, or when it starts to form, and exactly the rules surrounding a ruck. Okay, so for instance, when a ruck is formed, there's certain things that you're not allowed to do. One is handling the ball, obviously. And then the second one would be maybe coming in with a dangerous tackle, hitting the ruck at the wrong angle, coming in from an offside position. Okay, so there's a lot of things that the referee can penalize you on that. And they'll explain that to you in the video as well. Okay, so the maul is similar to the ruck. The only difference is the ball is off the ground. So that means it's when players start joining from each side and the defender. Just hold on a second. It's Lamont. Lamont is probably taking a bath or something. Anyways, so yeah, so it kind of looks like a scrum, but it happens during open play. It can happen from a line out. It can happen from a tackler that doesn't go to ground, because sometimes the person running with the ball can be stronger than you and you struggle to tackle them and get them to the ground. So what happens is another uh, team member of the tackling member will join in and try and stop this player. And then some of the players from the attacking side will also help that person. And then that's how a wall starts to form. So now they are just pushing each other back and forth, trying to gain, obviously, territory of the field. Okay, so it occurs when the ball carrier is held by one or more opponents, and one or more of the ball carrier's teammates also hold combines on. A maul needs a minimum of 3 players. The ball must be off the ground for it to obviously be defined as a maul. The team in possession of the ball can attempt to gain territory by driving their opponents back if they have better mauling skills, or maybe because they are just much stronger as a unit. And then the ball can be passed backwards between players in the maul and eventually passed to a player who is not in the maul. Okay, so when that happens is it starts off with a ball carrier going into a tackle, but it doesn't go into the ground, and then more defenders bind onto them trying to push you back, and your team members come join, and you guys are now pushing each other. Okay, once that maul is formed, the ball carrier can actually slide the ball backwards to the person that's bind onto him from behind, and that person will slide it on back until it gets to the last person. Okay. And on that point, that person has control over the ball. He can decide to either play it to the scrum half, give it to the scrum half to play into the back line, or they can hold on. If they see they are gaining territory, they can keep the ball in the maul and then move forward. Okay. As soon as the ball exits, then obviously it will no longer be a maul.
I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Uh, let's say in the middle of the mall, what even if the ball falls on the ground,
In,
and
in
then
the middle, oh, in
if
the
the ball
mall,
falls on the ground,
is
yes,
a is a ball.
who will be at the beginning of the mall, and the ball falls on the ground, who will be responsible to take possession of the ball? The
Okay.
opponent or the carrier?
It depends. If the ball falls onto the ground in the mall, usually the referee would see that as a knock on, right? So because the player carrying the ball did not have control over the ball. So even when you carry the ball, right, and you lose control of it and it fumbles out, then it will be considered as a knock on. Okay, so then the ball will be awarded to the other team. However, sometimes it does happen while they're passing the ball backwards within the mall that could slip out and drop, whatever. That is the referee's decision to either penalize them and say, okay, it's a knock on, they lost control, they didn't have control of the ball, and then they'll give a possession of the ball to the other team. Okay, and then many times you'll even see in the mall a lot of the opponents, the defending side, they'll try and get their arms in there and try and knock the ball out of your hands. Okay, so depending on that, it's up to the referee's discretion what he's gonna do, how he's gonna award it, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Okay, thanks for the question.
thanks.
Okay. Okay, so that is your ruck and a maul. Usually this takes place when contact between players during open play. Either a ruck will be formed or a maul will be formed. Okay, and then the thing that you must remember with a maul is teams actually, even with the rucks, but more with mauls, teams train for mauling during practice times, right? So one team might be very good in that aspect. So it's a team's decision also to go into a more uh, um, knowing that that's what they're going to do. Sometimes a maul just happens because the player didn't go down to ground, and then naturally it happens or it occurs that a maul is formed, and then the pushing starts. But a lot of teams would, especially with lineouts, they would go for the lineout, get the ball, and then immediately the rest of the forward players will join onto that person, and they'll form a maul because they are good at it, or they might be stronger than the other team, and then they try and gain territory in that way. Okay, and then um, advantage play in rugby is similar to that of in soccer. So it's when an infringement occurs, the referee awards an advantage to the attacking team. Um, I think the difference between soccer, the advantage that you have in soccer and rugby is in rugby you actually go back to that infringement. Whereas in soccer, once the referee said play on by raising his hands, they don't come back. If something happens after that, they don't come back and a free kick is awarded. Only the person is penalized, maybe with a yellow card or a warning. In rugby, play is allowed to go on. The referee will call advantage play. They will continue play as long as the team has possession of the ball for a certain time. I'm not sure on the time. It's usually also to the referee's discretion. Then, if nothing happens, he will later on call and say advantage over. So then it's fair play. But if something happens during advantage play, like the attacking team loses the ball, or the defending team tackled you and they won the ball in a ruck, the referee will blow his whistle and say, okay, advantage wasn't over. Now we'll go back to the foul that was committed. So they'll move back to there where it took place, and then they'll restart play from there. So that's how advantage works in rugby. Similar to soccer, play can continue. If something happens or the team loses the ball within advantage play, they will go back to the previous infringement. If nothing happened after a certain time, I think it's about 15 to 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, then the referee will actually say advantage over, and then it's a fair game and fair ball. Okay, so then after advantage over is called, the defending team can now try and win the ball back without having to lose the ball again. If the ball is won by the defending team before the ref has called advantage over, okay, that's just what I explained now. The ball is taken back to the where the infringement initially occurred. Okay, and then in rugby, I think we've already mentioned some of the offsides. But anyways, it's when you are in front of a teammate, you are always in an offside position if you are in front of your teammate. So if we are the team in possession of the ball, right, and my teammate has the ball, but he is behind me, then I'm automatically in an offside position, almost similar to soccer in a way, but you're only in a offside position if you interfere with play. So either interfere with the ball, touch the ball, or with the movement of defending players, etc., etc. Then you'll be penalized. But if you're just in front of the player and you don't interfere with play, then offside will not be called. Okay, and then kicking the ball to a player that is in front of you when you kick, then that automatically also places the individual in an offside position. And then at the scrum, um, did we do? I think scrums we'll do next maybe. But at a scrum, when you release the bind before the ball is out, or the scrum half attacks at the opposite side of the scrum, then it will be considered as an offside. So scrum is where you have 8 forwards and they are binded together, 3 in front and then 4 at the back of the 3, joined together by pushing their heads into each other here at the hips, and then obviously locking in with the arms. If that whole system during during the scrum, when the scrum is active and you let go of that bind, then that will be penalized again. And then also the scrum half is the person that will move around the scrum, try and maybe put the opposition scrum off. The way that you do that, how much you go around the move around the scrum can also put a scrum half in an offside position. And then at a ruck or a maul, um, players they join in, but in front of the handsome player and entering from the side. So when you enter into a ruck, you see your friend has been tackled. When you go into that ruck, right, you need to try and cover him so that the other team don't win the ball. Okay, but you also allowed to knock or push players away from the ruck. The way that you're allowed to do that is from the back of the ruck, you need to enter. So you can't enter from the side, otherwise it will be an offside, entering the ruck in an offside position. Okay, so that's also very important that you come from the behind the last player and then enter the ruck. And the same thing for the maul. You don't join onto the maul by coming into the side. You join onto the maul by binding onto the last player. And as the maul moves forward, it will grow in size depending on how the maul moves. It could be a rolling maul or it could just be a direct maul. Okay, then how do you play a player onside? So if the teammate that was in the offside position, if a teammate runs past him with the ball, so if other teammate then receives the ball and they run the play runs past you, then you are back on an onside position. Or you can literally just run backwards, try and get behind the ball, then you'll be onside again. Okay, and then also the teammate that was behind the kicker runs past you. Okay, so if another teammate that was already behind the kicker when the kick was taken, if that teammate runs past you, that automatically puts you on the onside position as well. Okay, and then the last one is when an opponent kicks or passes the ball, then you will be considered onside again. Okay, then I think this will be our last part for today. Um, just foul play in rugby. Actually, the one thing that I forgot to say about the tackles is you don't just consider the ruck. Please go check, look at the video. I think there's a video that I also posted on Moodle where they talk about tackling and how to safely tackle. Okay, so your position of your head when you go into a tackle is very important. That is usually how people get hurt, and that's what makes rugby sometimes dangerous, is because you don't have the correct techniques. So just before I forget, make sure to go look at that as well. And then in foul play, obviously any type of violent play. A lot of times rugby players get very aggressive, and they usually try and be violent purposefully. Okay, and then lawless, when you don't play within the laws of the game, when you repeat violation, which means you are now doing it on purpose. um, when you waste time, okay, like in soccer, when there's a substitution, they walk off that field like they are walking, taking a stroll on the beach, and there's 1 minute remaining. Okay, so wasting time, you can also be penalized. Um, and if you are penalized for this, then you will usually receive a yellow card, and then the player will be sent to the sin bin for 10 minutes. So if there's 20 minutes left of a match and you do one of those things and you get a yellow card, you will only come back when there's 10 minutes left in that match. Okay. A red card is not something that you see a lot in a rugby match. It's only for very, very dangerous play where you do something that could be life threatening to your opponent. Then you get a red card whereby you need to go for a hearing, and there's a lot of you get suspended, etc., until your hearing is done, and then you're allowed to continue with playing rugby. Okay, and then your in-goal area. The in-goal area is the area behind the goals. So that whole rectangle that is behind the goals is the area where you can score tries. Anywhere, place the ball anywhere in that area, push it onto the grass, then a try will be scored. However, set plays do not occur in in-goal areas. So you can't have a scrum in an in-goal area. So if there's a knock-on that happened in the in-goal area, you won't take a scrum in that area. No rucks and lineouts. If a ruck forms behind the goal line, then the referee will call maybe what do you call it? He'll say the ball got held up. Okay, so the play will always needs to start within the field. Okay, and then obviously also not lineouts. You can't have a lineout in the in goal area. That will be too easy to score. And then a touchdown of the ball by the defending team in their own in-goal area will result in a 5-meter scrum from their goal line. Okay, so in rugby, you can't score a own goal like in soccer, but you are allowed, if you receive the ball and you are now trying to get out of this area, you are under pressure. Okay, you're on your goal line, you are defending your goal line, and you receive the ball, you can actually take the ball and push it down in your in-goal area to kill the ball, to make the ball dead. It doesn't mean you've now scored for the other team. It just means you are under pressure and uh, you are resetting the game. So then you go do a 5-meter scrum, which is 5 meters away from that goal line. Okay. Also very important, just with that rule, You are when you receive the ball, but you are infield, right? You're not in the in goal area. You are just in front of the goal line. If you receive the ball, you are not allowed to carry the ball over and then go push it down because you are now under pressure or scared or whatever. Okay, that then you'll be penalized. You already have to be in that area when receiving the ball for you to be able to basically kill the game. Okay, and then fair catching in rugby, it's also something that's been implemented quite recently in recent years. Um, it's usually catching the ball behind the 22-meter line. So if the attacking team use a lot of times you'll see teams they kick a lot in a rugby match, and that's usually to gain territory. Okay, so if you have a good defensive team, you will kick a lot to try and push the opponents back into their own half, and then you'll defend really well. In that way, you win territory. So if a team kicks the ball and I'm within the 22 meter line, which we look at once we look at the layout, if I catch the ball within that area, then that would be considered as a fair catch, and I can actually call a mark, which means I just throw my hand in the air to signal the referee. Then no one's allowed to tackle you. You'll take the ball and then you'll kick the ball back either out the field or back into the opponent's field. Okay. However, if you are not within the 22 meter line or that area, then you will not be able to call a mark, and then other players or the opponents are allowed to tackle you. And we have less than a minute left. Okay. Anyways, we'll stop there for today. I will share this lesson on Moodle as well, same way as I did with the other one, and then with the additional things because I the other day with the other day's recording, I haven't posted it yet. I'll post that also for you. Okay, if there's any questions, just ask on the group. I'll try and get to it maybe a bit later.